There we go. Hello, welcome to my channel, Mr. Miracle Comics. My name is Dave, and today we have an episode of Graders Notes. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know I do a review show. Every couple weeks, we grab a comic book, joined by my Graders Notes crew. Today, it is here beside me, Metarog. Down below there, Mr. Comic Head 84, Kenny. And of course, joining us as the best pinch hitter in the game, Unruly Simeon. Right, and we take these guys and we grab an issue and we dissect it and we review it and we come up with a score based on 5. Right, so looking at the cover, looking at the interior art, the story, the concept, and then an overall score of what we're going to do. And the best part of all this, you're included. Because, we get you guys to grade it too, 1 to 5, and we add up your scores, and the chat grade gets to add their 2 cents into everything that we're reviewing as well. So, you guys are the 5th grader here on Graders Notes. Like I said, I've introduced my guys here, but let's give a little better introduction. Roger, how are you, sir?
Oh, I'm blessed. I'm excellent. Living here in Florida. Tell you, great weather today in the 80s. I was sweating bullets out there. Wife is doing well, thank God. So yeah, doing well.
Nice. And Kenny, how are you, sir? How are you doing today? How do you feel about this issue?
You know, no complaints. No complaints personally. I got plenty of complaints about the book, but no complaints. I'm doing good here at office headquarters. I had work to do, but you know what? I'm also a professional comic book reviewer grader, so I had to make sure I was here for this one, and I'm looking forward to this. I realized that I only read the other Savage Dragon series with the black cover one.
Yeah,
I wasn't too hip to this one. This is only like a 2 or 3 issues, right?
This was it started out as a miniseries, supposed to be 3, but then I think they went up to 265 or something like that. They ended up just keep going.
Oh, it's part of the same.
Yeah.
But they restarted it, right? On the other one at number 1.
Yeah, you started it.
Yeah, they restarted it.
They restarted it after this, and then that's the long run that you're talking about.
This is like the test run kind of thing.
Yeah,
like essentially, yeah.
And I think they restarted it again here. I think we're only joined by Mr. Jackson Roykirk today. Captive audience of 1. So how you doing, Jackson? And of course, Unruly, how are you down there in Georgia, my friend?
Old, fat, balding.
Well, good thing to know things stay the same. How did you feel about this issue, Unruly?
Well, I missed let me ask you one question. Is this newsprint on your physical copy, or is it a slicker paper?
It's a newsprint.
Okay, so maybe the colors are different on the digital version, but they're kind of garish. I wasn't reading comics in the 90s, not floppies. I was going to school, and I'd still go to my LCS, and I'd get trades, but I wasn't buying new shit. So I totally missed all of Brand New Image.
Well,
and as we will see later on in the show, I'm not sorry I did.
I'm not feeling the love here, Wayne. All right, let's start. Let's start here since we've only got the. We got Comic Night Musing. He's joined us too. Sleepy Reader 666. How are you, sir?
Hey,
nice
Damien, how you doing?
I don't get a lot of live audience. I'm more of a, people watch my channel a little later, but no worries. We'll keep going here. Let's start with the cover. And Roger, we might as well start with you. I've been starting with you all night. So how did you feel about the cover, sir? Kenny, did you pull out?
Well, let me just start, by a little bit of pretext, a little bit of preface here, right? I'm not a big Image fan. I'm even less of a Malibu fan. So when you put both those together, it's not going to end well with me. So that getting my bias out of the way, let me tell you what I think about this cover. First of all, it's 90s, rolling in here, right? I mean, notice larger than life, right? The buildings in the background look almost like they're like a diorama, like they're like at a weird angle here because he's thrusting forward here. And you're going to see this a lot in the comic, and inside the comic, all those rays, those garish yellows and reds and orange. Is there an explosion? No. Is there some kind of attack from space? No. It's Image in the 90s, guys. That's what we get, right? His left foot down there looks like Larson's taking lesson from Liefeld here. Really, really weird looking foot down there. The cover is actually not too bad as far as the actual impact of it, but I just do not like these super flashy covers with little substance. First appearance of this character, I'm assuming. Notice up in the box there it says brutal issue. Boy, talk about truth and advertising. This issue was brutal. But the cover is going to get one of my higher grades. I'm going to give it an average 2.5. I do like the figure and the way it's thrusting forward. It doesn't tell you anything about what's going on, really. So it's just kind of there. But it is impactful. It's flashy. It's 90s. It's not me. But I'll give it an average grade because things are going to go downhill real quick. So 2.5 for me.
2.5. A pretty decent score, I suppose. Kenny, we're going to roll over to you, brother.
Yeah.
How did you feel about this cover?
Well, right off the bat, I mean, great pose. I don't have many complaints when it comes to the Savage Dragon image. Like I said, badass pose. I think the rendering's cool. I like I always like to see the little arm hairs. You get that on a lot of Wolverine drawings. Usually it's synonymous with tough guy, hairy tough guy. So that did its job. So all that was cool. It's kind of everything around that image that I don't really dig. The speed lines, which is like a common trope in this title. It looks like doesn't do a whole lot for me. It's like it makes it stand out, no doubt. Like I'm sure it did the job of when it's sitting on the rack. I'm sure this thing really pops. But yeah, I don't really not a big fan of it. Move down so I can see the full header. Yeah. In the lower stuff is just whatever fodder, get it done. So the background there's not much going on there. The trade dress of the book, I feel like it has like a classic vibe to it. That actually reminds me of like Bronze Marvel DC, just with the adjective in the character's name and the 3D block letters. So I actually thought that was cool, but the color choice was really bad on it. If he's Savage Dragon, he's a green guy. You would think there'd be some green in there instead of purple and baby blue. So that was an interesting choice. And lastly, it feels pretty 90s with those adjectives. Brutal, first issue. Intense, action. We're only missing the word extreme somewhere on the cover all the 90s bases. But yeah, man, I mean, the cover is 75% that Savage Dragon drawing, which I really love. I think it's cool. Unfortunately, around it, I mean, it feels like a pinup page more so than a cover, really. So, the backdrop around it and any kind of theme and stuff is kind of what marks it down for me. So, I agree with Metarog. I gave it a 2.5. Great image of Savage Dragon, just all the shenanigans around it. No bueno.
No bueno. All right, man. Yeah, that's fair. Seems like we're getting a case for being okay. Wayne, we're gonna roll over to you, brother. How did you feel about the cover?
I do believe that my previous compatriots have summed up my feelings exactly. Although, check it out now. I'm not a Larson fan. I'm not a hater, but I'm not a fan. But look at that left arm. All the detail, the shading. It's like he spent 90% of this freaking drawing on the left arm, and then he was like, oh, fuck, I got to have it done tomorrow? That's what it looks like to me. And Kenny, I don't care for that trade dress. Even if it was a different color, it's just too generic. It's, all right. Y'all have summed up exactly how I feel about it. The extraneous background chatter, the whatever lines, whatever the hell they represent. It's not horrible though. Obviously, the kid has talent. I just don't think he's utilizing it to the fullest. So I'm going to add a half a point for the wife beater and give it a 2.0.
2.0. That was adding half a point. All right. How did I feel about the cover? So not the greatest scores. I kind of like the cover. I mean, it's a number one issue, right? So of course they put the character on the cover. It's very tropish. We've seen this umpteen times. Like how many times number one issues have the character popping out, or action pose, jumping out, jumping this way, or as a team jumping together, jumping. Everybody always jumping out at you. I guess you want to put your new character on the cover, so that's where that goes. You can see the colors for the trade dress are different depending what printing you have. It's like a pink fuchsia with green. I believe this is a 5th printing of this book. There's quite a few printings, more than I would have expected.
5th?
That's scary.
Yeah, it is a little bit, right? Like, I mean, think about it, man. Like, there's only 2 original Image comics still going, right? Savage Dragon and Spawn. Like, Larson came out with this one as one of the originals. So, yeah, the speed lines, the whole smashing of the city. I'm coming. I'm the Savage Dragon. I'm gonna get you. Right? So, but yeah, it's pretty tropish. I gave it a 2.5 as well. I think we all kind of landed in that. It does what a number one cover is supposed to do. It definitely catches your eye, that green and orange, like with him being green and that background orange. Like, I don't remember seeing the Spawn issue number one on the shelves. I don't remember. That doesn't stick out on my mind, but I remember buying this one. I remember this whole, that orange really caught my eye, and I remember grabbing this one right off the rack there. So yeah, it did its job. 2.5 for me. All right, so we're gonna move on to what are we gonna do next?
We're gonna let the 5th grader,
the chat.
Oh yes, the chat. How
grade.
could I have forgotten my wonderful chats in here? We get a couple more people coming in. Crow's Nest, Cardstock. Anybody else that I'm missing? Sorry. Not always the best stuff. Anyways, you guys, thanks for joining us. It's great. So you missed the intro a little bit. So this is the part where we turn the grading over to you guys, and you give the cover a grade between 1 and 5. You can give like 1.5 or 2, or do the half marks. And yeah, your score counts in the overall of this our show at the end as well for their score. So if you can go ahead and give us a chat grade now, that'd be great, guys.
Right.
Well,
It is now official. Jackson Roykirk has dropped the line.
Oh yes, please add your score below the line.
Drop the line.
I don't know.
Got 2.5.
I always liked it. The whole thing going around Image and all these guys leaving in 1992 to go form their own company. It was kind of a weird sort of thing for comics all around. You know what I mean? Like, not just creators, but for readers as well. And people weren't sure what was going on, and all these guys just who were fans of disappeared from Marvel and showed up here doing characters we've never seen or heard of before. But you know, a lot of people like Larson's stuff. I mean, he got a lot of criticism when he first started out, but when he first started out, man, the guy was young. Like, holy crap, he started out doing something for Marvel, like Thor, I think, and he was only like 26, 27,
And
something like that.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
They were all kids, every one of them.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
a lot older now.
He followed up McFarlane on Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah,
you know, so they had he had a similar, you know, that kind of more stylized style. So it was a pretty good transition from McFarlane to this guy.
My favorite work of Eric Larson is one issue of Thor that he did. That Larson drew it and Stan Lee wrote it, and the whole issue from the beginning to end is just a fist fight between Thor and Hulk, and it's nothing but splash pages and this and that, very little dialogue, and it's like
yeah,
it's one of the funnest issues of Thor, man. It's a fun book.
Well,
Well,
like I
guys,
said,
we only have 3 scores, and it comes out to 2.6667. So I think we have to round down to 2.5, right?
I guess we're pretty much all in agreement here
Yep,
with the 2.5.
Yeah, looks like.
it's a consensus.
Yeah. All right, let's get away from the art a little bit. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the story because I know it's going to have some emotional resonance with my fellows here. Yeah, Kenny, we'll start with you, brother. How did you feel about the story?
Well, overall, I feel like it's kind of paint by numbers, and it's a little formulaic, right? There's kind of like I wouldn't say it's cliche per se, if that's the right word for it, but there's definitely like tropes, comic book tropes used throughout it, which is, you know, a scratch against it. But at the same time, a writer that knows his tropes and knows his cliches, you know, they know how to put together a fundamentally solid comic book story and in first appearance. Like, it starts like, I'm gonna pull up the can you pop up the digital assistance here?
Yeah. How do I do that?
Yeah, you're good. I'm just gonna point out story-wise because it'll illustrate it well, of like the way it opens up with right in action, right? Splash page, and they throw you right into him being a cop. So they hook you in, and then, all right, now let's flash back and let me actually tell you the story of how we got here. That's kind of like a trope that you'll see sometimes. Like, they throw you right in the action, right off the bat, and then rewind and bring you up to speed. So, you know, they did that, and I like the theme that's going on of like the old superheroes are dying off, and they're all very, you know, classic. Like this guy, you know, it's like a Captain America type guy. The other guy's Mr. Mighty or something like that. And it's almost like a sign of the times here. Your old classic heroes are dying off, and here's your new school superhero. There's no cape. There's a wife beater, like Simeon said. Wife beater and a fin on his head, and there's no superpowers per se. He's just strong, you know. Like, I feel like that was intentional. I thought that was like kind of clever, kind of well done. Of like, this ain't your daddy's comic books. I'm sure that's what they were trying to get across back in this early Image 90s situation. So in saying that, those are like the positives. You know, I thought that was all laid in well. And, you know, as far as the negatives go, it's not so much I would critique it for like what's on the page, like bad dialogue, or how come you didn't, you know, this didn't make sense, that didn't make sense. It's more of a critique of like what's not there, you know. it doesn't like you don't really get to know this Savage Dragon guy motivations and stuff. It's kind of silly when he's like, I don't remember who I am or where I came from or anything like that, but he remembers everything else in detail. Very selective amnesia. I'm like, whatever, I guess, convenient for the story, I guess. But that was like silly. Like, you can't take this book too serious. That's for sure. So, that's kind of the deal, man. Not a lot of meat on the bone on the story. Formulaic. But the formulaicness worked to its advantage because it was clear to follow, pretty well paced. And the main thing I liked from the story and what he did writing wise was that kind of passing of the guard, the dying off of these classic guys and Savage Dragon kind of taking over to join the police force. I thought that's cool. That's like the clever concept here. So overall, I gave the story a 2. I teetered between 2.5. I was like, should I give this? I don't want to give it too much credit. I landed on a 2. I don't think it was trash. It's just, not even close to groundbreaking. That's all.
No. I would agree with that sentiment. Oh, man. Did you say a 2?
A 2. Yep. Gave it a
2.
A dose.
Yep, I got it. It's in the archives.
It's in the archives. Kenny's grade is in the book. Can't change it now. No backseats. Unruly, brother. How did you feel about the story? You got lots of meat on the bone here.
So I tried to put myself in the headspace of being a 12 to 15, 16-year-old dude when I was reading this. And it still wasn't that great. But if I'd have been a young dude and picked this up, I'd have probably kept reading it. It's a typical newsstand, superhero fare, but I do like the twists. And it's kind of a roman à clef, maybe, like Kenny was alluding to, that they're sitting there telling Marvel, this old school shit is gone, baby. This is the way it's working now. I liked the fact that he became a cop. That's a little bit different. And the one thing that really stood out to me that I enjoyed was how all these people, and it hadn't been explained, how all these dudes with powers are popping up, but apparently all of them are turning to crime. Wasn't a single one of them raised by Ma and Pa Kent with the conscience and empathy. They're all just, let's go hit that bank, So, but that's cool. I like bad guys. Bad guys are fun. But otherwise, the pacing was a little bit quick. It relied too heavily on stuff we've seen before. And again, 84 is right. A master can take those tropes and just tweak them slightly, and you're like, oh, this is great shit, even though you've read it 100 times before. Unfortunately, Mr. Larson hadn't reached that point by now. But hell, maybe Savage Dragon's a great comic now. It's been running 30 years. I'm sure there's all kind of great backstory and villains. Maybe it's decent. But it wasn't so good here. I'm going to be generous and agree with 84 and give it a 2.0.
Another 2.0.
2.0.
2.0.
Yeah.
All right, let me put that down here.
One of the other longest running creator-owned deals.
Yeah, it's like
the
Dragon and Spawn and everything else that Image is doing was published later. Just these are these were a couple of the originals, right? That came out in '92.
Yeah,
first started with. Anyway, I'll give a little chat about the story here. Yeah, I was not, like most of you guys, I was not too happy with this story. When Kenny, you were like, oh, that's cool. Like all the bad guys getting killed off and having this. And I was like, wait a minute, that's Watchmen. That's how Watchmen starts, man. Like he just took that straight out of Watchmen, like that whole opening thing, and then the way he's got different scenes in there. He's got things set up that are definitely pulled right out of the Dark Knight series, right? Even that like whole reporter in the background thing, plus like where he's first bursts in through the room and starts shooting people out reminds me very much of that scene in Dark Knight. Some of his illustrations even kind of pushing it when it comes in, like looking a little too Frank Miller-ish, right? Like it's. I don't mind when comic books take a little bit of something from another comic book and run with it. That's I don't mind that. But like this was taking a lot from a lot of other issues. Besides the fact that he was a police officer, there's nothing really I haven't seen going on here, right? I mean, they definitely held back the story, put way more action into it, right? Like this, the whole thing is like well, I guess not the whole thing. I mean, you get the only little backstory we get out of Savage Dragon in this whole thing is like how he became a cop, right? And that, other than that, we have no idea, why he's green, how he got superpowers, where he's from. He doesn't know either. I did like that. I thought that was good that we didn't get a big bunch of first issue-itis and just ram everything about him down. Oh, I was born here and raised here, and this is my address, and this is my, medical records, and like just we didn't have to dissect this character to death to get an intro, which I thought was smart of Larson. But the stuff he was building the story around, like it was very weak world building in my opinion, because he's ripping off other writers. Me, I don't know if he was doing it consciously or if it was just something that came out of him because that was the kind of comic books he was reading. He was a young man. But yeah, I found, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, this is cool, killing off those heroes and stuff. But that's Watchmen. And also that's, babyish. And that's childish here, man. Like the Patriot, who is obviously Captain America, getting his arms and legs crushed beyond repair. Like, come on. With everything that was going on with Image and Marvel and everything like that, for him to do that in that book, that was childish. That's like we're gonna kill all your heroes. Because the other guy is, Mighty Man is what they called him. He's obviously a ripoff of, or supposed to be like a stand-in for Shazam, right? So he's taken two of these big characters, or either Shazam or maybe an amalgam of Shazam, Superman, but he's taken their kind of their flag be kind of characters and breaking them and killing them and stuff, right? Like, yeah, Marvel wouldn't let me have my character book. Yeah, I'm gonna kill your guys in my book. So I wasn't too impressed with that. But then again, when he wrote this, he's 30 years old, right? So maybe that's the kind of response. I guess to get a little bit more mature by that time. But yeah, it's a really tropey, like Kenny was saying, some very tropey stuff in here. Well, this town hasn't seen the likes of me. I'm going to clean this town up, right? Like, holy John Wayne kind of Western trope coming out of it when he's talking about, joining the police force and I'll clean up this one horse town. Anyway, yeah, I landed on a 1.5 for the story. I like the fight scenes. The fight scenes were well written. There wasn't a whole lot of dialogue to them. That's probably why they were so well written. I did like that he was a cop, and I did like that it wasn't rammed down our throat. His whole origin story wasn't just shoved at us in one issue, right? Like, obviously, they're going to do something over this mini series to reveal how he became the Savage Dragon, where he got that stupid looking fin from on the top of its head. All that stuff will happen. Anyway, yeah, I gave it a 1.5, and I'm standing by that. Right? I don't like it. I don't like it when they borrow too much from other comic books. So that was me.
Okay.
Metarog, I think you're the last one on the story.
Yeah,
brother. How did you feel?
Yeah, looks like I'm bringing in the rear.
Bringing up the
And that's an
beer.
appropriate kind of term here. Well, I think you guys kind of danced. You guys, were very nice in your review here. I thought, I thought you guys were, Kenny especially. I think he was like, trying very intently not to drag it through the mud, right? Well, I have no such limitations in my review, right? Because we use the word trope like it's trope-ish, right? I don't consider this trope-ish. I consider this one big, huge trope. Period. Take off the adverb and make it a noun. It is a trope. That's what this is. Almost to the point of being satire. All right. And when I've been reading comics since the early 70s, so I have a certain image of what I think produces a good story. And obviously we can differ as far as what that goes, right? But in this one here, every element of the story I have read somewhere else and better. Okay. So first of all, we start with, that scene with, him fighting the guy with the guillotine. And of course we have the pretty girlfriend and he's beating the heck out of him and all the braggadocio from the villain. And then when he comes up and says, it's because I want you to, he's like, oh yes. Okay. Please. I've seen that in the Silver Age, that kind of cowering in front of when actually you meet somebody who knows you're going to kick your, what, right? The tropes keep coming. The amnesiac. Well, let me see. Where have I seen that before? Wolverine, Superman, many times, Hulk a few times. I could go on and on, right? Then we say, oh, well, there's one part where I think it was the police officer says, well, he's basically human, except he's green, has a fin, is indestructible, and has super strength. I was like, what part of that has anything with human? Like, I'm like a car, except I don't have wheels, windshield, a motor, and brakes, right? I mean, talk about a stretch of a comparison there. And that just tells me that he's just trying to throw stuff out to make it seem like it's clever, but it's just one big trope after another. Then, of course, we have the whole world of villains, or mostly villains. Well, when have I seen that before? Let's see. Crime Syndicate, many times, or come from a world. The What Ifs have many times where the heroes were the villains. I could go on and on if you want me to, right? But let's just call it what it is. This is all a swipe trope of Marvel, DC from the past. And you're right, Miracle. It's obvious that he's got a very childish axe to grind with Marvel. So he puts Captain America and Superman and, has the metaphorical smashing of them because I am a creator. I am free to do what I wish, not like Marvel, who are, the slave drivers. He might be right there, but that's not a concept, which I'm going to talk about later. But in a story, it's childish. It's just a very contrived way of getting your point across, which has nothing to do. In fact, it actually subverts the story to a certain degree, right? And of course, the hero doesn't know if he's a hero or not. His memory is selective. He knows who's the president, but he doesn't know what he had for dinner. So we have some intrigue there. Fine. But again, that's all based on tropes. And then, of course, when does he become the cop? When tragedy hits home. Where have I heard that before? Where have I seen that before? Maybe Batman? Maybe Spider-Man? Maybe? Again, I could go on all day, guys, with trope after trope after trope after trope. The dialogue is okay. Nothing I would say out of this world. You're right. The fight scenes have the best dialogue because they have onomatopoeia mostly. But otherwise, this is just one big trope, guys. Telling somebody this is a story is really, I think, a fantasy, right? It's just something that he took from the past and plunged into a story and a character which looked pretty good, but the actual story is razor thin because it's all taken from other stories that we've read from much better writers. I give this a 1, and that is a gift because there is nothing here that compels me to continue to read the next story, the next issue. It is just, lowest common denominator story. One of the very, very basement stories I've read in my lifetime. So 1.0 for me.
1.0. Sounds about right.
Take that, Larson.
You, Larson. Yikes. Yeah, that's almost as low as it can go out here. We've given out zeros before. I guess it wasn't a total zero. Like I said, for me, it was just a couple little things that brought it up, but I was pretty close to giving it a 1 too, as well, Roger. Let's turn it over to the chat. See how you guys, if you've read this in a while or not, if you remember anything about it or not. Yeah, go ahead and give us your chat. Just remember, I think even just reading this book and having no memory of it whatsoever of the story would be pretty typical. Like 10 years later, you'd be like, I can't. I remember reading it, but I don't remember what happened at all. Because there's nothing memorable that really happens in this book.
Yep. I'm pretty sure I did read this way back when. I'm fairly certain, but like you said, I excised it. Kind of like, when you try to purge things out of your body like a boil. That's kind of what I went through with this issue. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I definitely read it. I remember, like I said, buying it off the rack, but I also remember being like, meh, right? Like, yeah. Wasn't.
Look at Russ trolling me. Look at that. Look at that.
Everybody.
Wait till I get you on Simply Super, Russ.
Thanks,
I'm gonna give it to you.
Yeah, Dragon. He seems to have a little.
I'm a vengeful comic reviewer. Oh, we got 2.5 from Bill. Okay. Those young whippersnappers, they don't know what a good comic is if they hit them in the face.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, this was not a good comic. No, everybody would know that.
Did you keep up with Savage Dragon, Miracle?
Me? No.
No.
I haven't read this thing since the 90s.
Yeah. I feel like he never really, definitely didn't get near the heights of Spawn or anything, even though, it's 1 and 2 of the original Image titles that are still running.
Yeah.
But, I don't know of any classic moment, story. Only thing that I know that happened over the course of those 300 issues is that he started a gimmick where he would put the president on the cover.
Wow.
Right.
Well, if this thing had 6 printings, Mr. Larson could be tuned into this show doing a bump off a hooker's ass and just laughing at us. You know what I'm saying?
That's it.
Yeah.
I made
Oh,
my
yeah.
money.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Foolish mortals.
I'm sure.
I'm sure Savage Dragon has bought Mr. Larson his house. But...
Oh yeah, it has some kind of cult following. I'm sure. I know John's Comics for Kids. He's like a big Savage Dragon guy. I got issues. They both love Dragon. But
I guess if you're a big fan,
oh,
you're
guys,
a big fan.
like we only have 2 scores, a 2.5 and a 5. So that averages out to 3.75. So we got to give it a 4. I think that's probably the biggest discrepancy we've ever had.
You got us, Russ.
Thanks, Russ.
Anyway,
We
got us, man. And I'll get you for that one, buddy. I won't forget that one.
The judge says sustain. We're ruling it.
Overruled. All right. Let's move along. Let's go back to the. You know what? No, I know what we got to do. We got to have Kenny's pick.
I was thinking that.
That's right.
How about we, for the sake of momentum and my punch out time, why don't we rock through art? Because I would love to dive into the art before I have to split. And then my parting, words will be my picks for next time.
Okay, sounds good. We'll keep doing it with the art.
Sounds good.
Interior art, we're gonna roll over to you, Wayne. Get you to start this one.
Okay, there was Kenny. Can you go to page 26? I think it is.
Let's see. They're not numbered. Actually, hold on.
It's at the very back of the book. There's only like 29 pages.
Yeah, on page 26. Bam. Yes.
That panel I really liked. And it shows, I mean, the coloring helps obviously, but it shows what he's capable of, which unfortunately for the vast majority of this book, he did not live up to that panel. So, you know, and the colors are garish. Do they have to be so freaking bright? Everything's got to be a freaking primary color. When the warehouse explodes, it's a full page spread of basically nothing except the sound effect, ba-boom. Yeah, way to go, Mr. Lazy. I was not impressed with this book. Now, I enjoyed it. To me, he is a McFarlane imitator. Pure and simple. Just like Liefeld. They both got their own idiosyncrasies, but they're freaking McFarlane imitators, and there was 1,000 of them back then. And I actually like McFarlane. I loved 298 through whatever it was he did on ASM. But this shit ain't cutting it. But now I will say this, man, the 90s, look at those villain designs. Just completely over the top. This is like if Nick Nolte and Jack Nicholson were in a movie together when they were in their 30s and still drinking. And they were trying to over the top each other. That's what this is in comic book form. So, but it's just not my style, man. I think JR is drawn better right now. I got to give the art a 1.5. But and it hurts, and I'm being generous because I think the dude can draw. He proves it every now and then. But most of the time he's just zipping through shit, it seems to me. So I'm staying with a 1.5.
Oof. Harsh beans. Guess you really didn't like them colorings. All right, Kenny, you're up, man. How did you feel about the interior art of this Savage Dragon?
Well, I feel like I have to, offer up an important, piece of this, and that might have an effect on my grading. If we could full screen me for a sec there, Miracle. Back, I'm a man of a certain age, so the very first comic book that 84 ever purchased in his life with his mom's own money was this bad boy right here, ASM 348, back in 1991, 7-year-old 84. So this is Larson's era on Spider-Man. So with that being said, okay, we can bring up the art assistants now. I had to offer up all evidence to the jury. So with that being said, Larson definitely hits like a nostalgia note for me, So I do get a kick out of his art style. It makes me, think of like just those early simple. I equate it with like simple superhero action. Like my palette has grown quite a bit since then. But this kind of stuff was my shit as a youngster, so that still kind of pulls at me a bit. Very bright comic. You're right. Like I've heard the word garish a few times, and that's true, man. It's like really super bright. It doesn't even really match the tone of the book much either. So the colors are kind of trippy. Those speed lines, not really a big fan of those. It's totally Image. It's totally 90s Image. I've always felt like Larson was. Here's a nice little obligatory booty shot. Gotta appreciate that. Larson, I always felt like was a more talented Liefeld and a less talented Jim Lee. You know, he's kind of like, you can see that image inspiration big time. You know, but more so, I always thought of him as a more talented Liefeld. Is I feel like they have a lot of similarities in it, but Larson is way more polished and capable. The costumes are really bad. Like every character's design in this, even though I kind of dig this like Rick James skull shoulder pad guy, that's kind of funny. But the other villains are absurdly generic, mix and match. It's like whenever you play those video games and you can just hit random to like create a character. It's like one of those deals. But I think there's moments where it kind of shines. Like I really like this panel of the straight on pissed off dragon. That's great to me. Solid symmetry, cool snarl. He's got like he doesn't go as heavy with the cross hatching lines as Jim Lee does, which is good. It's that's a good thing. Sometimes Lee couldn't control himself with all those freaking cross hatch lines. I think he uses it well. When you give him a whole page to do, like a splash page, he totally mails it in. Like this one right here, the one that Simeon mentioned earlier, he like totally phones in big splash pages. It's just, it's just beyond him. I don't know how old he was at this point, but you can kind of feel this almost has like a kid, hey mom, check it out, I made my first comic kind of vibe to it. Let's see. Do I have any other notes on this thing? Yeah, villain, super generic. These guys are ridiculous. He really liked that speed line thing. He does it again. Really big onomatopoeia at weird angles. So a lot of like extreme for the sake of being extreme, which is, in hindsight, is pretty lame. But I'm sure kids were eating up this shit. At the time, like this particular series wasn't my thing as a kid, but his aesthetic and his style on stuff like Spider-Man was, it definitely did its job for a kid reading comics, And I also love that this page as well, on top of that badass Rambo panel, which is the highlight of the book. That one's pretty solid, pretty badass. So there's moments that I think it shines, man. He's just a little in over his head. Mails in a few panels. Terrible character design, just like this guy. The coloring is, talk about bad character design. Look at this motley crew of villains. These are like, as far as teasing the next issue, it's like I gotta look forward to these jabronis in the next couple issues. Give me a break. So, anyway, that's kind of my overall feeling with it, and I did not, I didn't go too harsh with the grade. I landed right in the middle, dude. I gave it a 2.5. Okay, for what it is. I think he has moments where he shines. His shortcomings, no doubt. But yeah, this is fun. It feels nostalgic to, it's like it's almost like fast food. It's like this kind of 90s action stuff from these Image guys. It's just fast food, man. You're gonna rip through it. You get a little booty shot. You get a little muscle bound action. So I'm not too mad at it. 2.5.
2.5.
What's your book?
My book.
Book.
Yeah, since I'm gonna showcase the two options now, if you don't mind. And
Yeah. No, wait. We got Roger.
Yeah, if you don't mind, if I just swoop on in.
No, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead. He's got to get going.
Brother.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry guys. Sorry. Since I'm on location here and I don't have the collection handy, I have 2 digital representations.
Show it up.
Miracle, you might want to give me the floor for this so they can get maximum impact on the choice now. Chat, make sure you pay attention now. Next episode, we could either review Daredevil number 181, The Death of Elektra. We'll deep dive into that. Or we could go a little more modern from that. And speaking of the Image crew, when Jim Lee made it big time and landed the Batman gig. This is the beginning of the Hush storyline, Batman 608. So your choices are Bat 608, Daredevil 181. Choose wisely.
Yeah.
That's a picture of mold.
Yeah. Mold.
That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about mold now.
Can we review the mold? Can we review? I want the mold comic.
Mold.
Is it too late to go to that one instead of this one?
Yeah.
No. Okay. The mold.
Anybody putting in their 2 cents? Is that Aspergillus on the roof there?
If
yeah.
not, we'll vote. If not, we'll vote.
Short years, Batman. Yeah, that's true. He did go short years, didn't he, Gino?
I guess nobody's interested in picking.
Yeah. You know what?
Is that a picture of our friend Aspergillus I saw in there?
Yeah. My man Stacky and Mr. Aspergillus.
Well, I go for the 181 if you want my vote.
Yeah, I'll go for 181 too, since we're the only one voting.
Yeah, I think 181 is a good choice. We can have some fun with that.
A long time since I read that one.
Yeah, long time.
Heck yeah.
Probably since it came out, actually. DD 181.
That'll
All
be
right.
fun. I think, and
All
the
right.
good news is the Daredevil 181, they facsimilated it. So
Yes, that's right.
you can get yourself a cheap facsimile if you want the real thing.
And they're always available online as well, right? If you just wanted to give it a quick read.
Kenny, do you have your concept grade for complete's sake?
Yeah, that one concept was, I think, my lowest grade, 1.5 on concept. There was
Okay.
nothing other than move over, Marvel, and old timey guys. Savage Dragon's here. That was it, and that's not a very powerful concept.
Right. Gotcha.
4.5.
All right, buddy. Be safe on your way home.
Appreciate you guys. Once I get in the ride, I'm going to tune in, put you guys on, and look forward to your grades and analysis.
Cool.
Have a good night, guys.
All right, my friend.
Bye, brother.
You take care.
See you.
All right. Well, where were we? Metarog, you're going to do the interior art, my friend.
Yeah,
How did
let's
you
do
feel
the
about
interior art. Why not? Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, I'll start off by saying I didn't hate the interior art. The problems I had with it, I think Simeon hit it and Kenny hit it somewhat, right? Which is, Kenny said it's extreme for extreme's sake, right? And that to me is an indictment of this art, right? Because there's storytelling, you know this, Miracle. There's storytelling art elements, and then there's impact that you have in the art for certain purposes. Okay. And to me, this was more about the impact than the storytelling. Now, we don't have the digital anymore, right? But if you notice, the layout, his layouts are just terrible because I felt like everybody was fighting like in a phone booth. You know, we see 3 or 4 and they're all like this close and compacted almost, and then you'll see his Savage Dragon's head will change from somewhat smaller to like double in size depending on what angle and what panel it is. That was somewhat distracting, but that's not really what kind of turned me off. It was the like Simeon was saying, that the oversaturated colors. I mean, it's like I needed sunglasses for some of those panels because all those rays and beams on the back. I don't know if he did that again for extreme effect or just I didn't want to draw a background, maybe that kind of thing. Of course, he has more tropish drawings. You get the glute shot right at the beginning there from the girlfriend. You have these, like Kenny was saying, the super overdone, over everything, 90s shoulder pads, skulls and spikes and all kinds of protrusions, which seem just unnecessary and just more for just effect and more for, like, like you were saying, fast food, right? But I look at it more like really very sweet candy, but has calories but no sustenance. So, but I did like some of his fight scenes. When he drew the Savage Dragon, he did have those the faraway scenes that he had, the more longitudinal ones were well done, right? And some of the facial of the dragon were well done, but everything in between there was confusing at best, and sometimes incomprehensible at worst, right? So the storytelling elements of his art were very weak, in my opinion, but they definitely were impactful with some of those fight scenes, and like when he's in the middle of that big field with the fire. I mean, that was impactful and a good storytelling element, but those were rare throughout. But I didn't hate the art. I just think that his layouts were weak. They're just too claustrophobic. But I can see that he has some talent there, right? And so I don't hate it. So I kind of went in the middle of Unruly and Kenny, and I gave it a 2. I don't think it's bad at all, but it's just that he needs to hone in more on the storytelling elements of the art and not so much on the garish and the exploitive part of the art. I just think that was overdone, which is Image and Malibu to a T. But that's just what it is. But to me, it just doesn't work story-wise here.
Okay, no, some very valid points about the art here, and when you say like that kind of art is very Image and Malibu, like that nails it for me, right? Because when I think of 90s comic book companies, right away comes like Image, Malibu, Valiant, and they all were big, garish all the time. You know what I mean? Like Marvel started to do it, DC did it a little bit as in their stuff, but I think a lot of these artists took off from Marvel and DC and went into Image and were allowed to just go haywire with whatever they wanted, and they did, right? And maybe they needed a little bit of restraint in some of the stuff, but it was the 90s. It was like crazy garish stuff. So when I think of 90s comics, if I didn't open this and see a bright pink fuchsia background in the very first page, I would have been really upset. But lucky for us, it was there. I'm just gonna go solo so I could erase some of this stuff out. Right. So yeah, the colors very 90s. I like these splash pages, man. Like the whole fight splash pagey. Lots of girls in scantily clad costumes, right? That's very, very tropish for the 90s, but that was Image's run. Like, ooh, there's a little bum cheek right there for you, right? Like, but that was how Image rolled, right? There is no Comic Code Authority approval on the cover of this guy, right? So they busted out lots of the fuchsia paints, lots of the bright colors, and lots of the red paint. There's lots and lots of blood in this comic book too. They drew it all over the place. Characters dying, they weren't afraid to do that kind of stuff and get some big stuff going. Again, more splash pages. Lots of fighting. Totally agree with you in that aspect that the fights very, very much felt boxed in. Right, like it always felt like he was up against the wall, or the guys were up against the wall, or somebody was in front of a table. Right, like it was never. They definitely didn't feel like they were fighting in any sort of open space. Right, like they were right up on each other. That little shot with him getting zapped right in the eyeball. That's pretty good. But I've seen that in Superman comics too. Good, yeah. The design on these guys slacked. Pretty rough. Yeah, man, weird. Same with this guy, Star. No. Does he look like you remember those guys from Ninja Turtles, the Footman?
Yep.
He looks like that with a wig.
With a wig. Yep.
With a wig on.
True.
Like,
Yeah.
one of the Footmen were trying to be in disguise.
Yeah.
You guys probably don't get this with the digital copy, but there was a big pinup in this thing too. Cool. This pinup kind of lacked.
Oh. Nice. Yeah. No, we didn't get that. No.
And that's out of nice paper, so it's not too bad.
That's not too bad.
I
not too bad.
Have seen some Savage Dragon stuff, more recent stuff, and Larson definitely polished himself up a lot compared to what he used to do here. But I mean, this is so long ago, right? Like 1992. This is 30 years. So you got another 30 years of practice under his belt. He's definitely was definitely much better artist at this kind of stuff now. I think I want to assume, like, see, you get some good ones. Ba-doom, right? Right after he said he was going to save the old man, he got blowed up. Yeah, blowed up real good. Anyway, where was I going? Darn, I lost my train of thought. Distracted by an explosion. Yeah, Larson's definitely got a lot better, right? Like here, I think he was maybe still a little, what's the word? Not confident in his stuff. And so he had to go big, like as big as possible in every page, right? Just to make sure that everybody knows that, you know, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit kind of art. You know what I mean? Really packed in there. And then, you know, lots of stuff that I feel very Frank Miller ripoff in a lot of stuff, right? All this TV stuff that was going on in the background when they were talking, that felt it didn't just feel like Frank Miller, it looked like Frank Miller in a lot of it. Where am I going? And stuff like this, with this whole back and forth between, you know, Savage Dragon and the cop, that felt very Watchmen-esque, you know, where the Rorschach was talking with the psychologist. Those panels are laid out very, very similar to that Watchmen. I had already talked about how I feel like this comic has ripped off a lot of that book itself. Yeah, a lot of these little background TV stuff very much felt like too much like a Miller deal. And maybe Larson was getting all mad with him because, you know, we're the artists now. We're the ones. And like that very much feels like Frank Miller, that panel.
Yeah.
Anyway, I did like the splash pages. I did like the coloring. Because it was a 90s comic, I expected that type of coloring. And what was the gentleman's name? Gregory Wilson? Is that right? Okay, Gregory Wright. Sorry, Gregory Wright. He definitely put on a fuchsia show in here, putting up as much crazy colory panels as Malibu Comics would allow for the budget. Yeah, this was originally published by Malibu as an Image comic, but Image didn't have their own printers for a little bit. I ended up landing on a 2.5 for the interior. Some of the anatomy stuff was weird. Lots of stuff felt really crowded, way too busy, way too trying to show off, but not quite hitting the mark for me. So I landed at 2.5 for that interior pages of my stuff.
Okay, I got you down.
Sweet. And yeah, so I guess we'll turn it over to the chat. Let them have a crack at the interior art grade.
Yeah.
They'd like to go ahead and do that.
Let's see if the chat has
graded a 1 to 5 under the interior art from what you've been able to see, or if you've pulled it up on your own computer.
You know what? I'm curious now. I'm going to have to pick up a couple of recent issues of this. Is he still doing it? Is it still him, I take it?
Yeah, that's the other thing is he's got like the two longest running ones are Savage Dragon and Spawn, and they both still have their original artist writers on them, right?
So I'll have to. I
Well,
want to check it out and see what he's doing now.
Yeah.
yeah, McFarlane went off for years though, and then he came back.
They come back again.
Well, and you know,
Yeah,
Miracle,
I think Capullo was on there.
the newscasters in the background panels, a lot of people started doing that after Miller, and I think it's just an easy way to advance the story. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess so. But I mean, if already ripping off other big elements like this, that whole thing with the hostage situation and him busting through,
Yeah.
so out of DK, man.
Right out of Dark Knight Returns. I mean,
Yeah. I'll kill her. Believe me, man. I'll kill her. I believe you. Right, like it was right out of there. So when I see he's ripping off pieces of the story, and then I see very similar backgrounds as to what Miller was doing, whether all the other artists were using it or not. Now he's really ripping things off, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like it's just that next little straw on the camel's back that made this a bad comic.
I think I might be a tad premature, but I think we're all in agreement that it's a bad comic.
Yeah, it wasn't the greatest first issue.
Yeah. The chat grade comes in at a 2 for the art. So right in line with us there.
All right. So thank you, Chad. I appreciate all of you guys watching. I see we got Vancouver Comic Junkies joined us here today. Hey, buds. Glad he could make it. Comic Head, please don't text on your way home. Drive your car. Much more important than telling us a chat grade. All right. Oh, Jackson Roykirk slide went in at the end. Or did I just miss that? Anyways,
Yeah,
no
but
worries.
it's 2, so it's on average. Yeah.
Okay. So let's move along and we will go to the concept of this book. And Metarog, we're going to start with you, my friend. How did you feel about the concept of Savage Dragon #1?
Well, again, this is sort of a tale of two avenues of how I'm going to grade the concept grade, right? Because on one hand, we have, creator-owned property here, right? We know that Marvel was very protective of their intellectual property, of their IPs, right? So, and because of Kirby and him trying to get some royalties and things like that, there was a long-standing problem with that. And then you have talented guys like this, right, who see that and it's like, well, I got no future here for long term, right? So, obviously he, Lee, and McFarlane, Portasio, a few others got together, and so I like that kind of innovation or moxie, if you want to put it that way. I like that part of it, right? And that they have more creative freedom. I like that too, right? But the again, I'm only grading this issues, guys. I'm not grading the character and the whole shebang. I'm sure it got much better going on, right? But I'm grading this particular issue based on what's in front of me, and I like that aspect. But the way that this has unrolled here in this issue was just so tropish and so, I don't want to say childish, because okay, you got an axe to grind with Marvel, I got it, but you don't have to degrade very obvious parodies or whatever they are of Marvel to get your point across here. Your talent, your storytelling ability, your product is what would be what gives them the zinger, right? And obviously that occurred, because 30 years down the line, you're still there, right? But, to me, that was just uncalled for, right? Unless there's something that I'm not sure happened between he and maybe the publishers at Marvel. Maybe there was something there. But still, I don't think that's a way of starting the #1 issue. Maybe, maybe down the line, you'll give a panel or two or some kind of double entendre. Well, okay, fine. But this was a little bit too stark, hit hammer over the head stuff. So that I did not like, right? and the character has potential, but it wasn't really unveiled here. It just, I've seen all this happen. I've seen all this done much better. Marvel, DC, even in Charlton, in the past, right? And maybe that's, I'm a victim of, you know, knowing or sort of having my my cap in those publishers in the past, but that's still no excuse in my estimation. So again, I like those aspects, right? That he, you know, that he put himself out there, took a risk. Original, you know, he has the ability to do, you know, creative freedom. I like that, but the other part, just, it was just a little too, you know, lowest common denominator for me, right? So I give the concept a 2, right? I think it has some positives, but I think on this issue, again, I'm only believing the concept of this issue, not the whole shebang. I think it just is lackluster and just has too much indulgent kind of aspects to it, and not so much, you know, focusing on the story, art, producing a great quality product and having that speak for itself, rather than, you know, giving the little twist there to that. So 2.
2. Yeah, it's a little, can't disagree with the stuff you're saying. How about you, Unruly? How did you feel about the concept of this book?
Well, you know, after listening and watching Roger for about a little over 4 years, I guess, or right at 4 years now.
Yep,
I'm
that's right.
starting to I'm starting to suspect that I am a much more petty and vindictive individual than he is. Because that is the aspect.
I don't know about that.
One of the things I liked about the comic was the way he was obviously trying to take a dump on Marvel. I enjoy that. But still, it wasn't done very well. It could have been done much more subtly, or, you know, a little more off camera. He could have figured out a way to do that better. But, you know, and right. I am not completely without empathy. As much comics as I've read, and I read regular books too. I'm fairly well read because I'm old and I read quickly. And the thing that kills me about trying to be a critic is I always put myself in their shoes. I promise you right now, I'm more than twice the age he was doing this, and I couldn't come up with something this. I could maybe come up with a slightly better story, but the art would be 2 steps above stick figure. So, you know, that kind of makes me not want to trash things too badly. But still, it was just, when you combine the subpar pencils and the tropey, cliche-ridden plot, and it was one cliche after another he rolled out. I just can't see giving this concept any more than a 1.5. It's just, dear Lord help us, it's not good.
Yeah, no, I agreed with that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that's right.
I thought you were going to go higher based on your intro there.
I love this book, except it sucked. All right. Let me do a little bit of concept work here. I don't know what to say besides what these guys have said. Like, the whole, it just starts out tropey cliche after another, after another, after another. It's like, you know, there's certain things that, you know, certain genres that lean into that tropey cliche stuff, and they really like push for it, right? And then there's other, like, you know, like a movie like Big Trouble in Little China leans into that kind of stuff. But it has to be done properly, or it's weird and not good. And that's, I don't know if he was trying to do this or if he just naturally just put in every, like, it almost should have started with, it was a dark and stormy night. You know what I mean? Like, he's just making him a cop was even tropish. And the whole like I'm going to clean up this here town, right? And amnesia and I'm not joining until boom tragedy and like just like everything we've just harped on this whole last hour and a bit about this book. The art is tropish and cliche. The pencils and the coloring is very cliche. It fits with that 90s theme, so that I'm not going to hack on the coloring too much, but yeah, the story is just like, were you pressed for time? Did you just like write this in a couple afternoons one Sunday? Like, what were you, I don't know. I don't get it. It was not good. It seems like even a little bit of like trying to put in like Terminator-y ripoffs from the time. Terminator was a huge movie at that time, so I'm sure he threw that down there for that. Boo earns, Mr. Larson. I wasn't too impressed with your writing or your pencils in this one. Like I said, he gets better. I'm sure a lot of these guys think that they can just like sit at a typewriter or a word processor or whatever and bang out a comic book story. And it's just not that easy. It takes practice and talent and knowing how to structure stories properly and what the rules of writing are. And I just think that a lot of this was just like tossed out of the window by Larson for this issue. And yeah, you can get me if you have a really great story and bad art in it, you can still get a half decent grade out of me. But when both kind of go to the wayside, I didn't dig on it as a concept, and I ended up giving it. Sorry, concept was a 1. Right, I thought it was just way too ripped off from way too much other people. It was my lowest grade. Wasn't too happy about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm shocked I got the highest grade on that one.
For the concept? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I'm shocked.
I didn't like it.
Shocked. I thought somebody would give it at least a 2 or 2.5. I guess I underestimate. I mean, I think you guys hit it on the nose. No, I mean, you guys rationalized it perfectly, so it should be fun. Yeah.
How I felt. Let's throw it down to the chat and see how they felt about the concept of this book. Was it good for you, or was it a little bit like, yeah, seen it, done it? Why is it being done again? Kind of thing. So if you go ahead and give us a concept grade, that'd be great, guys.
And Miracle,
our average 1.5, by the way.
I can if it's got a really good story, I can deal with even shitty art.
Yeah.
Or if the art is spectacular,
yeah, me too.
I can look past a threadbare story. But man, he was chugging on no cylinders for this effort.
Yeah, he edited Coast.
Yeah. Yeah, this was all inertia. There was no power behind it.
No. Yeah, just
hey, RB Major, welcome.
I know he was going to like stretch it out over 3 issues, but so maybe he had some sort of idea in mind where it was going to all come together in the end, but I don't know.
Yeah,
didn't come together enough for this.
But he's got to still he still has to have something there to hook us for the future, and the hook here was a bit weak. Just because he's amnesia. Okay, he has amnesia. You want to know is he one of those mutants? Is he one of the superheroes that was
come from?
What happened? Is he somebody else? Yeah, okay, I get that, but it didn't come through as that. It came through as more fluff than intrigue. Yeah. So that's where it went downhill for me.
To me, I'm not like sitting here going, I wonder what happened, how he became the Savage Dragon. I probably, like I said, I didn't think of it. I can think of this cover, I can think of this book, but and I've seen this book 100 million times, right? Like in dollar bins all over the place for decades now. I can never remember seeing an issue of number 2. Like I couldn't tell you what the cover even comes close. I don't think I've read it. Right, so I know there was like 5 printings of this one because everybody's going nuts at the time. I'm gonna buy Savage Dragon number 1. Right. It'll be like Action Comics number 1 in like 6 months. I'll be able to sell it for $500,000.
I am curious. about the sagittal crest is fin. Is
Yes.
it? Does it collect solar energy to power him? Is it some sort of something used in mating rituals? I am curious about that.
Lee Wayne. How can you? I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Puts on
that's
roller.
beyond my pay grade right there, boy.
Yeah. If he puts on roller skates, could he use it like a
The
sail?
the chat
Yeah.
concept is out to 1.5 as well, by the way.
All right. I don't think we're going to get any more. So let's close it up here with what is the overall opinion that we have of this book here. Start with you, Unruly. How did you feel your overall is on this book?
I don't average these out because sometimes I'll give it a little higher or a little lower. But I think if I sat down and did the math, it would be about a 1.5. And that sounds about right. And that's just because I don't want to, white. I can't really give it the grade it probably deserves because I'm trying to be a generous and kind person in my dotage. So I'm going to hang the 1.5 on it for overall.
Yeah. No, that's totally fair, man. I'm thinking about it too. How would you, Roger? How did you feel your overall was with this guy?
Same thing.
Right.
I almost gave it a 2. Almost gave it a 2 because of the slightly higher concept, but I always give more credence, right, to that. What we're talking, right? The story was a 1. I mean, you can't give something that close to average when the story is just that miserably done. And so I think I averaged like a 2, but I'm going to plunge it another 0.5. It's just not enjoyable to me. It was there. It's just one big trope, guys. So if there was more originality here, then I'd bump it. I'd leave it there, but it was just not enjoyable. I just kept having flashbacks to where I've seen these story elements done much better 20, 30 years before.
Yes.
So 1.5 for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, there wasn't much here to conceptualize, like that wasn't just taken from other stuff, like I've been saying. So as a concept, as an overall, I always talk about, would I recommend this book to somebody? Definitely no, right? I'd recommend that you avoid wasting your time reading the first few issues of Savage Dragon. I'm not sure what happens, 100 issues into this. Obviously, something was compelling readers to, buy it. So, like, it continued on. Maybe the story got really cool. Maybe they made some stuff, but there's nothing in this book that, like, draws me in. Like, I'm going to think about later on down the road, right? Like, I still think about that cool move, where we had Juggernaut versus the Thor, and when Thor threw Mjolnir at the Juggernaut and he grabbed it and like came back and gave the punch, like that still sticks out of my head as like such an awesome battle thing. There's nothing like that in there. Just a bunch of punching and blood and girls and skimpy stuff, and let's pull out some of these big guns and like just throw it every marketing trope for 14-year-old boys as we could possibly put in here, and hopefully we sell a bunch, which we did, and probably sold about 10% of that with issue number 2. Yeah, so I landed on a 1.5. I wouldn't recommend this book. Wasn't really doing it for me. I did like the coloring. That's about all I liked, really. But other than that, yeah, it's not a memorable issue. Nothing really great happens in this book. And if you're introducing a character and you're really trying to, this is a character he had been writing for a while. It was like, this isn't the first time this character appeared. He appeared in a couple of the stories before that in fanzines and stuff, or in some whatever zines that he had put out. But yeah, if you're going to introduce your character in like a big mainstream comic and like put him out there, make a splash, make me like him, make me buy Savage Dragon number 2, because I have to find out what happens. I don't think any of that happened at all. So yeah, I landed way down there with the rest of you guys. Not good. Not recommended.
Yep. So our average came out to, it was 1.675. So that's 1.5 for this comic.
Yeah.
Our average. The chat average was 2.5, thanks to Russ's 5. So we diverged by a whole
that
point.
5. He was just doing it to be a dink.
You got to do it like
I
Olympic
put it down there,
judges.
so I put it,
Raj, you got to do it like Olympic judges. Throw out the high.
Throw out the high and the low.
Throw the low. Yeah. It's the average.
Well, if we had more scores, I might do that, but we only had 2 in that category. So that's it. We average 1.5. That's got to be one of our very lowest scores that I think Raver might have gotten the same score, but
yeah, I think the Reaver got worse.
But that was one of our very lowest scores here on.
Yeah, it was pretty awful. Oh wait, no, I know why it's in dollar bins all the time now. It's like not only is there a million of them, they suck. Nobody wants it. It's a Turok. It's one of those. Maybe when I heard they're gonna do some sort of like Savage Dragon animation, or he's supposed to be in Invincible, like he's supposed to be in season 2 of Invincible. Maybe that's what I heard, something like that. So
I heard
never know.
like
This
that,
book
yeah.
might see a big rise in price, right? As it's his first mainstream comic appearance. Could be worth that $1 million yet. Wayne, better grab up like 100 copies quick.
Well, as we know, the quality of the comic has nothing to do with the value of the comic, right?
No,
because
not at all.
if you guys read Liefeld's run and Nicienza and New Mutants, right? But
Terrible.
people love it. It's like, ooh, hot stuff. So
no, first appearances are always what it's about. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the comic is terrible. Doesn't matter if their first appearance was just 3 panels. Forever people.
Right.
Number 1 with first appearance of Darkseid. Yeah. It's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible issue. Have you ever read it? It's terrible.
Yeah. And was that? I know it's an old argument and blah blah blah, but was that really a first appearance?
First full appearance.
Well, the Olsen was just. Yeah.
It was. I was thinking of the Olsen. It was way better than the Olsen.
Yeah, the 136 where he's just on a TV screen. First appearance.
He's on a screen. Yeah. I mean, if that's a first appearance, and so is Hulk 180. In fact, Hulk 180 is a much better first appearance than that one. But
oh yeah, big time. Like there's all kinds of appearances like that. Like, what was somebody? Oh, I was just looking at one the other day. But I can't. No, sorry, it's not coming to mind.
Like the first Mystique in Ms. Marvel. The first Mystique in Ms. Marvel, she wasn't even Mystique. She was Fury. Like she had assumed the identity of Fury. So I was like, is that really a first appearance? You don't even see her real self?
The first appearance of the Red Hulk. He's on the cover of that one, but he's not in the book. He's not in the story. Just at the end, he's like in blackness. You can't see anything. He's growling.
Right.
So I'm like, is that a first appearance? I guess he's on the cover, but he's not in the story. Like, it's weird, right? Like,
yeah, that's kind of like Bishop, who's on the cover, but he's only like in one panel.
Yeah, I definitely would get like the next comic, right, to get his first full appearance. We could argue first appearances till the cows come home. That's for sure. That's one of my collector's favorite topics. That's for sure. Anyways, guys, I think we'll end it here. So next week we are going to grab up and do, or not next week, 2 weeks from now on Comic Kid 84 channel.
2 weeks.
What did we pick? Daredevil number 181, and
the death of
online, or you could get the reprinted issue. There's those dollar reprints that is the death of Elektra. So hopefully we've got a little Frank Miller action. Maybe we're going to get some better art. Yeah, but definitely a better story. I always felt that Frank Miller was a much better writer than he was an artist. That's for sure.
But he did have some chops. Now, The Wolverine miniseries was solid.
Yeah.
Ronin was very good to me. That
Yeah.
was his. That was the apogee of Miller's.
Ronin
books.
was good. Yeah.
Ronin was good, but I mean, it's the
Yeah.
story.
Lone Wolf and Cub. Yeah. Okay.
Lone
Yeah.
Wolf and Cub was good, but those stories were much better than
Yeah.
the art that. Yeah, I mean, there was
Yeah,
nothing wrong with
agreed.
the art
Yeah.
over there. We'll see. We'll see what happens in the next episode, 181 here. So yeah, we'll end it here. Unless you guys want to spout off anything that's coming up. Metarog, of course, doing your contest videos, your contest update videos. But yeah.
Hey, I'll
Round
be Saturday night at 7. I'll be on Kevin's channel, Superpower Review, showing off books.
Oh,
Cool.
so you've got another review show you do.
No, this is we just.
I
sit
see how
around
it
and
is
show off
playing.
books.
Sure. Little side.
Sure.
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 Yeah, so that sounds interesting. Anyways, guys, I appreciate everybody that stuck around in the chat. Genome, thanks for coming in at the end there. Hopefully your night went well for you. Jackson, you've been here since the beginning. Always Graders Notes, great chat guy. And appreciate you, brother. Terrible at this, so I'm just going to end it here.
Very much so.
Before my voice totally craps out. I mean, I need to go get some water and go to the washroom. All right. This has been Mr. Miracle Comics. Just reminding you, Wednesdays are new comic book days, but every day is old comic book day. We'll see you next time here on this channel.